What's up, it's your boy Hobo Drobo, and today we have some highlight stadium matches with the Glacial Druid and the Blazing Gem. But before we hop into our first highlight match against Utano here, I want to give you guys a quick agenda of what to expect this week. Tomorrow we're going to be going over a Battle Mecha deck that I actually stole from somebody, and we'll be going over the match that enlightened me to this new experience. So after we go over today and tomorrow's matches with the two decks, I'm probably going to steer away from Stadium and focus more on Onslaught, as well as trying to get streaming up, trying to get more custom matches going. If anybody has any recommendations for how to get Streamlabs to work effectively on mobile, please let me know, or any way to screen share my device. Really, that's the only thing I'm having trouble with right now. Otherwise, I'd be getting streams going. And I should have realized in my last video that Paula and Dina were both bots because of how high level the cards were. I just wasn't expecting to see bots this early already, but I'm in that part of Stadium where I am starting to play a lot of bots again, and I do want to try and climb for those leaderboard rewards because they're a lot better this season, but it's going to be harder to find real matches, and so that's where I want to get Onslaught going again and get custom matches going so that we can see more matches against real people. But the nice thing about focusing on Stadium for at least a few days straight is that I'm able to save up a lot of event tickets. That way, when I want to bring you guys new strategies, I'm able to actually test them for more than 7 matches a day. That just doesn't feel like it's very satisfying to be able to actually bring you guys content that I feel like, okay, you guys can go out and use this. Or even if it's troll decks, I just like to try and get good matches even if they're with troll decks, and that doesn't always happen when you only have 7 matches a day. But using the Battle Mecha in Stadium has been a lot of fun, and just being able to micro it around in new spots and find ways to get artillery value is definitely interesting, and it's bringing a new layer to each map that I've already played a bunch of times. And if you want to utilize the Battle Mecha, go check out Prahan's video on his full guide. Otherwise, I'll have some gameplay of how I like to utilize it tomorrow. But most of our points are very similar, and I agree with how he likes to use that Battle Mecha as a support tower rather than a heavy artillery. Now, enough teasing with the Battle Mecha, and let's hop into this crazy match against Utano. And I want to start with what Utano is doing here, because he thinks he's very sneaky, placing down Glacial Druids, Teslas, and Barbarians. I know he is an Archmage, but he's not placing that Archmage down, and you'll see why at the very end of this match. Now, I have a big problem with sometimes not looking at the title card, seeing what my opponent's cards are, and so if that was the case here, or if I didn't know that Utano was an Archmage player, I would have been probably caught off guard by that Archmage at the end, and it would have been more difficult for me to pick boosters. But I do know that, and I do have a feeling that Utano is going to place an Archmage in that back spot where there's no tower yet, and so I'm being very careful of picking what I send there, trying to counter everything, just focusing on my defense. And Utano does send a really nice booster my way, the Stone Golems. Those are so annoying for my deck to deal with. Even with the Blazing Gem, you just want something like a normal Mage Tower or an Archmage or anything else that can just do damage a little bit here and there to those Stone Golems. And so that was definitely a good play, and you'll see that in the next match that we have here. Stone Golems were the death of me. But it often depends on the path that the troops are taking. So the Stone Golems here, they go right through the middle. The Musketeers are able to deal with them pretty nicely. I can micro the Barbarians over to them if I need, so they're not too much of a problem here. But it also helps that there's that main choke point next to that right side portal. That allows me to separate the main troops from those Stone Golems so that I can easily take that out. In the next match, you'll see that the choke points are really bad, and so trying to separate the Stone Golems from everything else coming my way is really, really difficult, especially with this deck. But now we're midway through round 4, and I want to start getting my disruption abilities up. The freeze, you can see that Utano starts getting the freeze on my towers. I want to start getting those sniper shots up eventually, and then I can do a lot of disruption to his side, because I know that that Archmage is coming. And I got that Merchant of Death booster up. You can see how much gold I have. It gets really crazy really fast, to the point where I don't even realize how much gold I have. I'm just upgrading towers how I normally do, and I really should be spamming them more because I'm just not used to how much gold you get with this booster. And I do want to mention one thing about this deck. I am using Stun and Lightning here, but I feel like you can also use Polymorph and Sabotage. It just really depends on your playstyle, and I do think that you also need Royal Archers if you're using Polymorph, because Royal Archers are just so good at targeting the sheep, making sure it's getting consistent damage in compared to the Musketeers, unless you have a lot of Musketeers down. So I like that extra consistent damage from the Royal Archers if I'm using Polymorph, and then the Sabotage helps with making sure the Polymorph sheep die, and it also is good for maps like this where you have bosses that are magic resistant, making it so that your Blazing Gem is actually doing damage to the bosses. But with this deck, I think I still prefer Stun and Lightning a little bit more, because with the Glacial Druid and with everything else in your deck, you're really just trying to make sure you're stalling and then disrupting your opponent. You want to make sure you're getting Blazing Gems up, you want to have the Freeze, you want to have the Frost Giants, and you want to have the Musketeer Sniper Shots, because you want to just be wreaking havoc on their side. And it's going to be difficult in the boss rounds because you probably won't have enough to be able to kill the boss. But if you're playing against somebody with Battle Mecha, then all of a sudden you can't disrupt their towers, and your win condition gets completely thrown out. And so you'll see that in tomorrow's video. But another thing is that if you can't place Blazing Gem on some maps, and there are a decent amount of maps in Stadium where you can't put the Blazing Gem down, I just opt to go for more Glacial Druids or Musketeers and Barbarians. It really just depends on what my opponent's sending me and what boosters are in the map. And even if you can't place the Blazing Gem down on some maps, like you can place it down obviously, but it's just not good. You may as well place down any other tower. At least you're getting that extra 2% on the cooldowns of your spells from its passive ability. You know, not the most, but if you're not going to be using the tower in a match, at least you're getting something out of it. And so here we go, we're ready to tango in the boss round. This is what we live for, this is why we rush. And while Utano has done a nice job of defending so far, I'm ready to show him absolutely no mercy. And so, while I like to say, again, don't send summons, don't send boosters that can be dissipated, I have so much on my board right now that I can send him, and I have so much money that I'm just going to send him everything. It doesn't even matter. I'm just going to send everything. Now, my guy Utano is probably slobbering all over his phone right now because he cannot wait to dissipate things from his side to my side. Call me Sauron, because we're about to unleash the Nazgul. And it's matches like these where I really miss having that stun spell, but with Polymorph and Sabotage, you just get so much more damage off that if I'm more consistent with getting damage on the boss, I think I'll be able to win a lot more matches. But you are going to struggle against some maps and some bosses. It's really hard to cater your deck to every single map in the game, and so I think that's why we're starting to see a lot of people use archery scouts, for example. They're able to shoot from really far, deal with the bosses that have magic resistance, as well as that are just fast, like this bootleg Hog Rider. So that's where I've been losing a lot of my matches, is to people with the archery scouts. You can see on this map, this choke point is really effective for me here, with those Glacial Druids just going crazy. And that's another nice thing about the Glacial Druid, is that it's just even more stalling potential. But you can see I'm not getting a lot of damage on the boss here. And so that's where the Glacial Druid really struggles, is that if you don't have Sabotage in your deck, Glacial Druid is going to do nothing to bosses other than slow it down. So you need something like Archery Scouts, or you need something like Musketeers or long-range Archer Towers, something that can take down the boss. And then Utano hitting me with the Dissipate, but how about you dissipate these nuts, bro, because that's not stopping Hobo Drobo. Barasag comes in with a huge roar, able to contain everything, Blazing Gems going crazy, and now Utano is not going to have enough to stall out his boss, and the Dissipate wasn't enough to catch me off guard. And also look at how many summons I have on his board. All the Frost Giants, all of the Eldritch Channelers. There's nothing he could have done. Even if he had more Archmages to dissipate, he wouldn't have had enough damage to deal with the boss, and so I was able to play into my strengths and get a nice win. But good job, Utano, well fought, and obviously I'm just trolling you, bro. You know how it is around here. Bro's been a supporter since basically day one, so huge shout out, man. Now let's get into 2 matches against Chatham here, I believe is how you say it. And this was a really cool first match because he was mirroring my deck, and so you can imagine a Chaos deck versus a Chaos deck. Towards the end of this match, I've never seen so much disruption on the screen at once. It was crazy. Chatham is also a viewer of the channel, so good looks, man. And then he had a really nice booster on round 2, which was the Stone Golems, like I was saying before. These Stone Golems give me so many problems, and I wasn't able to send anything his way like the Stone Golems, so that's where he got pretty lucky on those slot machines. But he also has a lot lower level cards, so I think overall this match is pretty fair. I had 1 level on his Barasad, 1 level on most of his towers, and then 3 levels on his spells, so I definitely have the upper hand there. But these Stone Golems, man, he does not back down, and he sends me level 4 Stone Golems. So yeah, thanks, man, I appreciate it a lot. And not only do these Stone Golems come straight from hell, but they also like to take leisurely strolls through the middle of the map where none of my towers can hit them effectively. And what makes it even worse is that there's no good choke point on this map other than where that second portal entry is, where you can see right now I put that icy zone down, and so if troops get past that choke point, which they do a lot, then there's almost nothing I can do to separate the Stone Golems from the other troops, and it makes it almost impossible to actually defend them. And Chatham's going to recognize that, so he's going to go with a Frost Giant right away, as if there wasn't already enough that I had to deal with. But this is where those shrapnel shots from the musketeers are going to come in very clutch. I can't do much with the blazing gem here, and I can't do much with glacial druids, so I have to get musketeers and barbarians up to make sure that I'm getting as much air targeting priority as possible. I'm forced to buy as many upgrades as I can defending, like the shrapnel shots. I'm not able to get much disruption on his end, and so I picked the damage booster over the stone golems, because I feel like at this point if I sent those golems it wouldn't have really mattered. He would have been able to easily defend those level 1 golems, and I needed as much firepower on my own side to be able to defend this round. And you can see with round 5 here, there's just so much that I'm dealing with on the bottom there with the Frost Giant and the other troops, and now the stone golems are coming through, and there just wasn't enough I could do to be able to separate my spell cycle on everything, and so he just does a really good job of swarming me. Really nice job of recognizing that I didn't have anything to do with the stone golems, and so sending that, being able to upgrade it every round, just made it impossible for me to win this matchup. But I'm not going to give up, and even though one stone golem leaks, we're able to get a huge roar from Barasat to push everything back, which gives me enough time to be able to defend this barely. But you know me, just survive until the boss round, and there's always hope. So now, if I am able to survive, my plan was to just get every single disruption possible. And the sniper shots along with those 2 blazing gems were crazy. It was like every few seconds there were things going back and forth on the screen. So much chaos, so much disruption. It was really hard for either of us to defend in general. But Barasat is able to get the obliterate on the ogre, which allows us to hang on until round 6 by a near thread. But unfortunately my Barasat does go down to some sniper shots, and it's impossible for me to stop the stone golems once that happens. So GG Chatham, well played. Even though I got kind of unlucky not getting those stone golems, it was a good job of them recognizing that that would take me out, and they showed no mercy, which is exactly what you're supposed to do with this deck. And I'm going to lose 50 medals in this match, and he's also going to hit me with the laughing emoji, although he's not going to be laughing for long, because we're going right back at it. Although this time he's bringing the Arcane Wizards instead of the Blazing Gem, and I'm not sure what his thought process was behind that, but if you want to leave that in the comments, let us know, man. And I would show the full match, but the normal setups are what you expect to see with each of these decks, and so I just wanted to show this highlight boss round, because this finish is probably the closest finish I've ever had, closer than some clutch dissipates, closer than when I've been able to take out bosses, although you can be the judge of it. Now for this map, placing those barbarians in that spot where they are is very important. You're going to see a lot of flying troops go through. I'm able to separate the ground troops from the flying troops. The magic flying golems just go right down that path, and those barbarians are going to be able to take care of everything. Also be stunning the boss, using Icy Zone when I can to make sure that the boss is going really slow. This bootleg Hog Rider likes to haul ass. And so with this spell lineup, it's important to make sure that he can't do that. Something that I found difficult to deal with on this map is that when I'm playing against players with Ashbite or bots with Ashbite, they're able to nuke my barbarians in the middle there, and that gets rid of basically my entire game plan. And if they're sending flying boosters towards me, it's really difficult to deal with. So I think if we ever see this map in Onslaught, Ashbite may actually be the go-to pick. Otherwise, I do think Barasat is probably the meta this season. Him being able to give you extra gold is just so helpful. And originally when I was talking about the dragons, I had mentioned that that was something that I didn't like about Barasat, because I didn't understand what Death Tax did. I thought it gave my opponents extra gold. And I was like, okay, that's like the compensation for Barasat being really strong. But no, it gives you gold. And so when I realized that, I was like, yeah, Barasat is definitely my favorite dragon. And I do think Ice Cult is probably slightly better, but it definitely comes down to skill with both of these heroes. You have to know how to use them, and you have to know how to use their kits effectively, and in this case, it's being able to pick a deck that utilizes the strength of Barasat giving you more gold. So that's why I've also been liking using the Battle Mecha. But another reason I like using Polymorph and Sabotage is because you can see even like here, it was really difficult for me to deal with those high armor troops in this deck, and so since my main magic tower is only single target, I need something that can take care of those high HP troops, and Polymorph and Sabotage just does that job so perfectly. And so I am having to deal with annoying boosters in this match, but it's not as difficult as that last match with those stone golems. The path they take is just ruthless. And so here I'm actually able to utilize my spells, get the Icy Zone down, get the stun down, although that boss on my side is getting a little bit too close to the end than I would like, and so now he's barely going to turn around because of that Barasat golem. Goat Golem from Barasat, another reason I love that dragon is because he can summon reinforcements, stop bosses, stop any enemies in their tracks, and it gets it enough time to be able to stall it out. So GG Chatham, great 2 matches, awesome, awesome, awesome. hitting him with the good luck because clearly Chatham likes causing as much chaos as we do. And then before we end this video, here's another sneak peek of what you're going to see tomorrow with the Battle Mecha. Ike, the #1 player in the US, versus Dro, the #2 player. I think a second Blazing Gem on the boss would have won me the match. Thank you guys for watching. I'll catch you in tomorrow's video, and I'll catch you in the next match. Peace out.